I was recently provided with the opportunity to purchase a Rolex Oyster Perpetual 34, and when I got there, I just couldn't pull the trigger. And it's largely because there are more affordable alternatives and homages for that matter that are available in the market. Which begs the question, is Rolex still worth it? Or does homages or alternatives satisfy the desire? If we take a look at the Rolex Oyster Perpetual design, it's no doubt a classic. It's been around for ages. It's one of the most recognizable watches in the world, and it set the stage for a lot of brands, whether they're heritage brands or micro brands, to actually come up with their own interpretation of that design. But if we took away the Rolex logo and replaced it with, said, the Traska logo, we get something like the Traska Commuter, which really makes me wonder, is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual worth it? Or am I just buying into the brand? And that's the basis of this video. There's essentially two components to watch collecting. One, the emotional aspect of it, and the other, the technical value for money. From a technical perspective, the Traska is an extremely capable watch. This commuter here is sized modestly for smaller wrists, with a case diameter of 34.5mm, lug to lug of 41.5, and a thickness of just 8.75mm. Alongside the solid bracelet that tapers from 19mm to 15mm, the Traska Commuter here is equipped with dimensions that are perfect for smaller wrists. The build quality is nothing to gloss over either. All of Traska's watches are treated with their proprietary case hardening treatment, which takes the regular stainless steel of 200 HV on the Vickers hardness scale all the way to 1200 HV. Almost 6 times as durable and as scratch resistant. The finishing on the case itself also deserves praise, with a variety of brushing techniques on the bezel and lugs that just makes the commuter pop, all the while being an understated design. The dial itself is a lacquered black dial that gives off a subtle hint of glossy finish. In most lighting conditions, the commuter possesses this rich shade of black that gives it a level of depth that goes beyond just your regular black dial. There's almost a slight sheen texture to the black dial, which is very impressive for a micro brand, especially at this price. The individual hour indices are faceted, which really is just a fancy term for finishing that increases light reflection, making the dial that much more shiny across various lighting conditions. The handset is finished sharply, and according to Traska, are all brushed finished by hand. Swiss grade BGW9 Super Luminova is generously applied across the dial and does shine well in the dark. Compared to Seiko Lumibright, it won't blow you away with the brightness, but it's solid, and the blue has always been my preferred lume. Traska's oyster style bracelets are always impressive, and it's no different from the commuter. The links are screwed down and each link is solid, coming together to form a fully articulating bracelet. Just like the case, the bracelet itself is treated with the same hardening process. An unusual lug width of 19mm, but it tapers nicely to 15 at the clasp. The clasp is finished to an excellent standard, polished chamfers on either side, and inside is once again hand finished. 5 micro adjustment holes means you'll undoubtedly be able to find a perfect fit. Unfortunately for the smaller case sizes, the bracelet don't come with the on-the-fly adjustment clasp. On wrist, the 34mm Traska Commuter fits perfectly on my wrist, and at times giving me the false impression that I have larger wrists. One of my biggest concerns was that the 34mm might be a little too small, but I can say that it actually is a size that I need to consider more often in the future of my watch collecting journey. Although I will say the commuter in 34 wears more like a 36mm because of the beefy lugs, and at the same time the solid build across the watch head and the bracelet gives it that much more heft when on wrist. And while the commuter is only 9mm in thickness, the entire watch including the lugs is equally as thick, so it will sit pretty flat on your wrist. I've experienced both the 38 and 36mm cases on the Traska, and I've got to say, I'm most comfortable with the 34. The 38 is way too big, the 36 is pretty much a Goldilocks size, but I've got to say 34 is a refreshing size and works really well with this dial and case design. Overall, a fantastic wearing experience for those with smaller wrists, and a size to consider if you're looking for a more vintage inspired size. There's no doubt they've done a fantastic job with the technical value for money aspects of the watch. In watches and watch collecting hobby, it's not always the hunk of metal on our wrist that really makes us fall in love with the watch. There's also the emotional aspect of the watch. For most of us, we started our journey with something affordable. Seiko, Casio, Timex. Then slowly but surely we get sucked into a world of watch content on YouTube, websites, blogs, you name it. Then comes our next fixation, the next watch we'll start saving for or aiming to buy. That becomes a vicious cycle, and the next thing you know, you're jumping up in price, spending more money, and looking to purchase your first Swiss watch. And along the way, you might encounter microbrands, AliExpress, so on and so forth. There's one thing for certain. All of us will come across a grail. And for most of us, it's likely a Rolex of some sort. It's like a canon event for all watch enthusiasts. And if you're lucky enough to have a Rolex as your first watch, then amazing, good for you. But for the rest of us, we enter into a phase where all we think about is what is the best affordable alternative to said Rolex timepiece. My thoughts on homages can be summed up by this take. I believe that the watch spectrum is split on two ends. One end is the technical value for money aspect. How much is the watch giving you in terms of how much you're paying for it? And on the other end of the spectrum is the emotional aspect. How much emotional value we place on the watch. Combining those two factors gives us the perceived value of a watch, or in other sense, how much we actually love and adore the timepiece. And perhaps more importantly, are we willing to purchase it for the asking price? There will undoubtedly be people on either ends of the spectrum. Those who absolutely adore AliExpress for the amount of value for money you get from the Chinese brands like San Martin. And there are those on the opposite end, Rolex fanboys who will die on a hill and dare not even touch a Tudor. Believe it or not, some people still cling on to the whole Tudor is a poor man's Rolex. Most of us were somewhere in between those two extremes. We love a good homage from a quality microbrand as much as we love the real thing. We'll be impressed by how a Traska can produce such quality timepieces for the price, and at the same time love the Rolex Oyster Perpetual for the classic, timeless beauty that it is. Whether homages are good or bad is just a matter of how you perceive value. There's always going to be that one person who is against buying expensive brands because they believe that the money is in the marketing. And there is some truth to that. On the other hand, there are those who refuse to buy homages or alternatives and go straight for the real thing, oftentimes ultra luxury, because outright copying designs with minor changes isn't part of their watch collecting hobby. And there is some truth to that too. And everyone is unique in that aspect. I personally have never bought anything from AliExpress, but I've bought a lot of microbrands, and it's very likely that some of the watches that I've purchased came from the same Chinese factories. Though I must say I do enjoy that tiny bit of marketing and soul, if you will. I just haven't enjoyed it enough to drop ultra luxury money on Rolex, for example. And that scale changes for every watch. Some will tug at your emotional heartstrings more, while others may wow you with their technical value for money. It's different for every individual and certainly different for every watch. Does the Traska Commuter satisfy my Rolex cravings? The answer is no. The Traska is an extremely well-built timepiece. There's no faulting the Commuter for what it is. A really, really good watch. But the reason why I want a Rolex, other than their timeless designs, is because I want a Rolex. I want the brand name. They've done an amazing job doing their marketing, so much so that I don't really care what the watch even looks like. I'll buy a Rolex just because it's a Rolex. So the Traska doesn't satisfy that craving for a Rolex for me. It doesn't satisfy the craving for the Oyster Perpetual, even though the design, the build quality is arguably there for a fraction of the price. If you're looking for a good everyday watch that you can wear to any occasion and be really impressed with the build quality and overall design language, then the Traska Commuter is really a no-brainer. But if you're looking for the Rolex Oyster Perpetual, then the Traska I don't believe will satisfy your craving. If anything, it's only going to push you further away from getting your grail. Spending $600 here might sound good, but it's going to take away $600 from your overall saving to the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. So if you want an everyday watch that's built well and is designed nicely, by all means go with the Traska. The anti-scratch resistant coating is amazing. I've worn Traskas every day for months, and at the end, they still look brand new. But if you're into the Rolex, if you want a Rolex, if you know the Oyster Perpetual is going to be your watch, stick to your saving goals and go for that instead. But I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you have a Rolex as your grail? Do you think you'll ever buy it? Or perhaps you've gotten satisfied with a more affordable alternative that you found in the meantime. Love to hear your thoughts. I'll catch you all on the next one.